Well, this has really confirmed the worst fears of many of the parents who lost children during this horrific act. What the police have admitted today is that authorities, those police that were on the ground, took too long to actually take out this gunman. And what we now have confirmed is that there were around 19 police officers on location here at Robb Elementary, but they were in the halls outside the classroom where this gunman was killing children and their teachers. And the reason given at the moment for the commanding officer who was on location, who made the call for the police officers to not go in, is that at that point he believed it wasn't an active shooter situation where protocol calls upon the police to go at the gunman with their own gunfire, and instead it was a barricaded gunman situation. And one of the most difficult to digest elements of this press conference today is that it was the assessment of those officers on the ground that there were no children alive in the classroom, that the assessment was that the gunman had already killed the children and therefore there wasn't the need to rush the classroom at that time. But what we now know is that during the time that these police officers are outside this classroom while they're in their halls, and these are armed policemen, police officers I should say, there were children inside these classrooms who were calling 911 and pleading for help. They were asking for the police to come, and the police were outside the door and were not entering that classroom. It is still confusing about how many children lost their lives while the police were making this decision to not rush the classroom, and that the authorities say is still being assessed. But it is clear that although there was an initial flurry of gunfire, there were other shots taken, and there's also evidence that there were children who had been badly injured by shots earlier on, and now the question, of course, is whether or not they could be saved. But this was a very significant press conference from Stephen McGraw, who's the director of the Texas Department of Public Security, and he's the one who was leading the press conference and says that officers are continuing to investigate.
For the benefit of hindsight, where I'm sitting now, of course it was not the right decision. It was a wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that. But again, I wasn't there, but I'm just telling you, from what we know, we believe there should have been an entry at that as soon as you can.
Carrington, in the aftermath of this shooting, the Texas governor has said that he was misled about what happened in Uvalde.
Yeah, that's right. So Governor Greg Abbott is actually in Uvalde today. He was supposed to be appearing at the National Rifle Association meeting that's actually occurring in Houston, where we've seen large protests against that meeting. He did actually appear, though, via video link, but he's here in person in Uvalde. In the initial aftermath, Greg Abbott described certain things about what they believe had occurred with regards to this gunman and the timeline, and a lot of those elements now have proven to be false. He says that he was misled. In his words, he's livid about being misled about what has occurred, and he has promised a thorough investigation and that those who have failed in their duty to protect will be held responsible.
I was misled. I am livid about what happened. I was on this very stage 2 days ago, and I was telling the public information that had been told to me in a room just a few yards behind where we're located right now. I wrote down hand notes in detail about what everybody in that room told me in sequential order about what happened. And when I came out here on this stage and told the public what happened, it was a recitation of what people in that room told me.
But it's a really difficult issue now for these families who are grieving, who have lost their children, to deal with. That there were the people who were tasked with protecting the innocent was standing back while their children were effectively being slaughtered inside this classroom. So an awful moment for this town to reconcile. And the difficulty here in Uvalde is this is a small place. There's less than 16,000 citizens here, 16,000 people. The way it's been described to me by many locals is that everyone was touched, obviously, by the deaths of these children, but these officers are also their friends and neighbours. And so trying to now reconcile the fact that it appears, and we're still waiting for judgment of exactly what happened, but that there were police officers, armed police officers, who were standing back while this gunman was still armed with a military-grade rifle in the classroom where these children were dying, is a very difficult thing for people to deal with.